Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole. On our podcast, we delve into the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
That's right, Nicole. Our podcast is all about exploring those fundamental truths and practices that nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, Christina, we want to make metaphysical concepts easy to understand and accessible, especially for those who don't have a ton of time to do all the research.
Right? We'll do the research as well as share our experiences and perspectives, hoping to empower you, our listener, to find balance and magic in your day-to-day.
Inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root, let's explore the roots of well-being and self-healing together.
This is The Radical with Christina and Nicole, two metaphysical girls in the material world. Hello, welcome to the Radical Podcast. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole.
Today we're talking about Pisces, the astrological sign Pisces. It is the last one in the astrological year. And we did not start this season at the beginning of the year, so we still have to finish up Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and Leo. And then we will be complete. But this is the end of the astrological year, ending with Pisces at the, I'm giving away too much. I was just about to start talking about the spring equinox. I gotta back it up. This is just the introduction. So I'll start with some facts and some information about the season of Pisces. Segment 2, Nicole is going to do a talk about some bigger picture of the nodes, the North Node in Pisces. Listeners, I don't read her notes beforehand because I like to be surprised. So I just glanced at what she has here. It looks like some shadow Pisces, so some good stuff there. And at the end, Nicole and I are going to talk about where Pisces is in our birth charts. And I've got the message from the universe. I'm using the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck by Kim Kranz. Nicole and I have been enjoying this deck every time we use it. And I've got some cards all ready for us that have been selected. So are you ready, Nicole?
I am ready.
All right. Pisces. For the year of 2025, Pisces dates are the 18th of February to the 20th of March. Within that time frame, we have daylight savings on the 9th of March. Every time daylight savings comes around, there's a discussion about whether or not we should still have this situation. I don't even know what to call daylight savings, this procedure. And then there's lots of stories about what it really means, where it really came from. And honestly, if they have us take a vote, I vote for doing away with it. What would you vote for, Nicole?
I would say do away with it also.
Yeah. It's from a different time. And then on the 14th of March, we have the full moon in Virgo. That is also a lunar eclipse. The eclipse will be on the 13th of March at 11:57 p.m. and end on the 14th of March at 6 a.m. It will be visible from North and South America. It'll be the first total lunar eclipse visible in North America since November 2022. I hope I have a clear night that I can get a peek at it. That full moon in Pisces, that full moon in March is called the worm moon. You know how some of the full moons have titles or descriptive elements as part of their titles in different calendars. If you see worm moon, it's because that's when the earthworms would start to emerge from the ground after the winter thaw. And then I also saw storm moon, which is tied to the February full moon, which is sometimes called as a snow moon because of the Native American traditions that the weather was often unpredictable and sometimes unseasonably cold. So it would be stormy. They've also called it the hunger moon. Okay, you ready for this one? 15 March, right at the end of our Pisces season, is a Mercury retrograde until the 26th of April. It's the first full phase of Mercury retrograde for the 2025 Aries season. And that is, like I said, after the spring equinox. So that is considered the new year in the zodiac and astrological year. So those two signs, Pisces and Aries, are having a big year with Neptune, the planetary ruler of Pisces, moving out of its home sign and into Aries to stay for 19 years. When we get to Aries, maybe I'll remember to make a note on what that could mean to our listeners who are Aries, who have Aries in their charts. Nicole, you probably already know. You're just not going to tell us.
I do know that in addition to Neptune moving into Aries, I believe Saturn will be joining
And
Neptune in Aries at the creator degree, that first
wow.
degree of the sign. But it's not just the first degree of the sign, it's the first degree of the zodiac. And an
Right.
astrologer that I listen to is still looking for a time in history where this has happened before. And she's been through the last 12,000 years and now she's going back further. So it's been at least 12,000 years
Wow.
since Neptune and Saturn both have entered Aries and will be conjoined at the creator degree, at the first degree of the zodiac, Aries.
And that, okay, we'll be ready for it. We'll be chatting about it in just a few episodes when we start doing the springtime episodes. I'm excited. And speaking of springtime, the 17th of March is St. Patrick's Day. That is kind of it's a very commercialized holiday. It started out specifically in Christianity, but now it marks what I consider the beginning of all the springtime festivals. That is like one of the first ones. And then the end of Pisces, we have the 20th of March, the end of the astrological year. The cycle is complete. And then I think the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, Ostara, is at like 5:01 Eastern time on the 21st of March. The energy for Pisces in 2025 calls our Pisces friends out of hiding and into the spotlight. This year, the universe is setting the stage for our Pisces to dive deep in the waters of self-discovery and emerge with their wisdom and strength, which is tied to Saturn and Neptune, right? Being right there, moving into Aries right after Pisces. And I think as Nicole and I are recording this right at the beginning of February, we're still talking about. I mean, I just found out a piece of information 2 days ago about the 2025 planetary parade of January, which included the alignment of the planets as Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Venus and Saturn. It was also a lunar standstill, as they say. A 33-year cycle was complete. And this brings for our Pisces friends opportunities for growth, transformation, and positive change. The planets for Pisces, the ruler is Neptune, dreams and illusion and idealism. The classic, before we discovered Neptune, classically it was associated with Jupiter. Exalted is Venus. The detriment is Mercury, and the fall is Mercury as well for Pisces. The element for Pisces, the fish, is water. And that represents the fluid nature of the body, mind, and spirit. Immediately, I thought of Be Like Water. Have you heard this from Bruce Lee? This
Yes, I
quote,
think I think we posted it on our Instagram a couple months ago.
I
I love
I
it.
I looked into it a little deeper because I wanted to title, if Nicole liked it, Pisces Be Like Water, because it's to flow, but from a place of strength. Water carved the Grand Canyon. Water can change rock, can change metal. It has a strength, but it also has a flow to it. And that's the Bruce Lee quote. That's the first thing that reminds me of, is he's talking about being be like water, to be strong and consistent and steady like water. And the quote is, be water, my friend. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. And the quote is a summary from the Taoist concept of wu wei,
Wu Wei.
wu wei, which means effortless action. The quality of Pisces is mutable. The mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, they're known to excel when adjusting to new circumstances. So these signs, like when we were talking about Aquarius, I was talking about the cardinal, the fixed, and now the mutable. And they fall in during the time of year when it's one season is transitioning to another. So that's where that mutability comes from, that flexibility comes from. Sagittarius is fire, and that's from 22 November to the 21st of December, and it's the last days of fall and ending in deep winter. Virgo is earth, 22 August to 22 September, and that is the very end of summer. I mean, you could still be harvesting things in August. Into 22 September is like fall. Gemini air, 20 May to 20 June, spring to summer, right? May could be hot, but it's still spring, but all the way to 20 June, right up to the solstice, the days are still getting longer leading up to that point. Summer doesn't start technically until the summer solstice. And then Pisces water, 18 February to 20 March, the transition between winter into spring. So if that helps organize why the mutability of signs, that is why it's seasonal and also where they fall. The polarity for Pisces is negative, which is yin. The chakra is the sacral chakra, Svadhisthana, associated with creativity, sensuality, and emotional well-being. Aquarius, or the one before that, I was talking about how the chakras flow with the zodiac signs. We were just in the root chakra during Capricorn and Aquarius because the chakras do like a little U-turn there. And now we're coming back up. Energy is rising back up from the earth, kind of mimicking the springtime, coming back up into our Pisces. And then next will be Aries in the solar plexus. The day for Pisces is Thursday, and that's associated with Jupiter. Number is 7, and that is tied with Neptune. 7 is associated with wisdom and spirituality and intuition, but also mystery and knowledge and creativity. The body parts are feet, lymphatic system, and pituitary gland. The lymphatic system totally makes sense to me because Pisces is all about water. And I always think of the lymphatic system as like flowing.
Totally.
The color is sea green and blue, associated with water, but also with its planet, Neptune. Now, then we go back to metals, and this is tin with its association with Jupiter. Tin represents durability, yet flexibility. Tin is malleable, flexible, but also very adaptable and very resilient. All right, going into the symbolism. Pisces, the word Pisces comes from the Latin word whenever there's a word, oftentimes I practice before we start, but then it almost doesn't matter because then I look at the word and I just draw a complete blank on how to say it. Pisces, it's Piscis. Pisces, which means fish, and Pisces is plural of fish. The astrological symbol shows two fishes captured by a string, typically by the mouth. I've seen pictures of the mouths being joined by string, but also the tails. And the fish are usually portrayed swimming away from each other or in opposite directions, representing the duality within the Piscean. See, I like that word, Piscean nature. And I found this really interesting that they have very early depictions of Pisces iconography. They thought the earliest one was the depiction of the Pisces was on an Egyptian coffin lid from 2300 BCE, but they found an even older two fish connected by a string in India in petroglyphs that date back to 10,000 BCE. And these images have been carved into the rocks at Ratnagiri. If you're interested in that, look that up. Ancient history here. And then the mythology stories behind Pisces is as varied as we have cultures on this planet. I didn't dive deep into too many of them because I wanted to just kind of do an overview so that you listeners can kind of follow the threads of where your research takes you. But it has to do with life giving water and the deities associated with water, creation, and salvation. Fish are a powerful symbol throughout the whole history of mankind, water throughout the whole history of mankind, and each culture has their own take on it, but there's a lot of common themes throughout all of it. Bridging the space between human and divine and conscious and unconscious. That's all I'm going to say about mythology. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Not today. The glyph, you might have seen this on your smartphones in the little purple box, is a closed parenthesis and then an open parenthesis and then a minus sign between the two of them. That is like the technical description of what it is. It's a half moon facing in two separate directions away from each other with a line connecting them. That's Pisces. And that is the representation of fish going in opposite directions. The Pisces constellation is in the first quadrant of the northern hemisphere, and it's a large V-shaped region. It's a large area, but it has dim stars, so it's not very easy to see. And it's one of the largest constellations in the sky, and it's one of the classic ones that Ptolemy, the Greek astronomer, talked about in the 2nd century. The 12th house is the house ruled by Pisces. Introspection, the invisible and the intangible. The virtues of Pisces energy and Piscean personalities. Empathetic, idealistic, dreamy, sweet, sensitive, intuitive, artistic, optimistic, versatile, spirited, good listeners. They're mystics, dreamers, and poets. The flaws of our Piscean energy when it's out of balance or it's low or too high: distracted, ambiguous, emotional, moody, messy, chaotic, shy, unkept, confusing. The tarot cards for Pisces, this was no surprise. The moon, illusion, and the moon, and I'll throw out some. There's so many. this is just to get like the overall theme of the moon. Illusion, fear, anxiety, subconscious, intuition, and imagination. Vivid dreams and fears. I always say, look at the card in the deck that you have and don't look at anything and just see how you feel when you look at it, because that is also a very strong way to interpret the cards. And that is the major arcana card. And then we have, Nicole just went and got a deck of cards. You just got a tarot deck.
You know me.
Right before we hit record, I had the archetype deck over here, and then I showed Nicole I was talking about my older tarot book, and then I had my new tarot book on top of that book, and I was looking at the moon on all of them, and I was like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but this moon card is really talking to me today. But that is the major arcana Pisces card. There are 3 in the minor arcana, and they are cups cards. The 8 of Cups is Saturn in Pisces, which is walking away, leaving or walking away and leaving something behind. A question you can ask yourself when you're feeling resistant to this card or it comes up reverse is, what should I leave behind? The Nine of Cups is Jupiter in Pisces, and this is satisfaction, luxury, and emotional stability. The question to ask yourself in reverse for this card is, what is the unforeseen consequences? The Ten of Cups, Mars in Pisces, inner happiness, dreams come true, fulfillment. And the question to ask yourself when it's out of balance or reverse, what small adjustment brings everyone together? And then I want to backtrack back up to the moon. I didn't say the question, the question for reversal or balancing for the moon. The question is, what wants to emerge through me?
I like that.
Yes. Good cards. Good cards. But that is my list. Now I just realized we're at the bottom of the list.
We'll
I
trim
just
this
skimmed
part out.
through. I don't have anything else. So we could sit and talk about tarot cards for another 20 minutes, but we gotta Nicole, like if we leave this in, I'll say, listeners, Nicole and I are getting to be very good editors, but the fact is we don't need to cut out 10 minutes of us going out on a tangent.
So in segment 2, I have some notes about the lunar nodes. Recently, the North Node and the South Node changed signs. So to start, what are the lunar nodes? These are simply mathematical.
When you pause there, I had just the tiniest moment of panic. Like I was like, "Oh my gosh, does she think I know?" I was like, "I'm not raising my hand. I'm not raising my hand. I don't know." Nicole's giving me a quiz.
Pop quiz. It takes me back to college when, even in these big lecture halls, I had some teachers, some professors that would still randomly call on people. It was so scary.
I had a whole moment there. I was like, is she waiting for me to answer?
Okay, so what are the lunar nodes? I was going to say, the reason I paused, I was going to say that we've talked about them before, and we've talked about them in the context of our personal birth chart and the nodes describing our life path, what we're moving towards, what we're moving away from. But in terms of what are they in space, these are mathematical points of opposition on the ecliptic plane. Another way of saying this is where the sun and the moon meet along their orbital paths. Typically, when we have an eclipse, the eclipses will then fall within the signs of the nodes. And eclipses, in an astrological sense, are thought to impact the collective consciousness and be more potent in terms of the themes and lessons as they pertain to the signs involved. It is important to know that the nodes travel backwards through the zodiac. They spend about 18 months in each sign. So we just moved from an Aries North Node, which is the first sign of the zodiac, backwards into Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. That's where the North Node is now. I'm sure we could probably do a whole podcast on the symbolism and the themes and the meaning of the nodes moving backwards. In our birth chart, the North Node is said to represent what we are walking towards, the lessons we are learning, the skills and the characteristics that we're learning to embrace. The South Node is usually summed up as what we're walking away from. So if we're walking towards our north node, then therefore we are walking away from our south node. I read recently something that basically was saying, don't oversimplify your south node. And it's not all about dismissing your south node. Those are your strong points. That's what skills and characteristics you are born with, and you are naturally skilled in those areas. And I really liked how it was described. We don't want to stay in our south node because that's what's comfortable, that's what's known. And growth doesn't occur if we simply stay in our south node. We want to take those skill sets that our south node has given us and take it with us as we walk towards our north nodes. And you can consider past life or karmic interpretations with your north node and your south node. That gets really interesting when you start thinking about lessons from a previous lifetime. That's really fun for me to think about, but if it's not for you, you can definitely keep it contained to this lifetime. So the nodes changed signs this year, 2025, on January 11th.
January 2025. What a month. I almost said what a year because it felt like a year. That month felt like a whole year. There was a lot happening in January 2025.
Yes, a lot was going on astrologically for sure. Before January 11th, 2025, we had the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Libra, and the nodes stay in their sign placements for about 18 months. So July 2023 through January 2025, we had North Node Aries, South Node Libra. This was my nodal return because that was when I was born. Those are my nodes.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, and you were talking about, I believe, in our last or one of our upcoming episodes, actually, because we got a little out of order, which is totally fine. But we were talking about Saturn returns and I believe Jupiter returns.
Every 12 years.
So present day, with the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, we're going to have these placements until July 26th of 2026. And then at that time, the North Node will move on to Aquarius and the South Node will move on to Leo. So even if this isn't your nodal return, the nodes are still impacting the collective energies. Some Piscean themes for the collective when the North Node is in Pisces. Let's dive in, pun intended. During these 18 months, more of a collective focus on spirituality, deep inner connection, mysticism, fantasy. Now, each sign has its kind of high points and its shadow side. And we'll talk about some shadow aspects with Pisces. And mysticism, fantasy, all that sounds pretty good. But we can have too much of a good thing. And too much fantasy, too much mysticism may be indicative of spiritual bypassing or kind of living in a delusional bubble, kind of escapism. So that would be the caution area with the Pisces North Node for the collective. A big one that I love the theme of surrender. And with Pisces, it's surrendering to the divine, to divine timing, to the unfolding of your life rather than the micromanaging of your life. Virgo is a very organized sign, and Virgo opposes Pisces and is therefore the South Node placement. So we're surrendering our sort of obsessive overscheduling, our habits around list making, our color coded calendars, our micromanaging tendencies. So that's what we're kind of letting go of and surrendering more so to the divine. Some of this still may serve us, but we really want to let go of kind of clenching and holding tightly to our ideas of what should be happening and our timelines. Pisces teaches us to be compassionate, empathetic, heart-centered. A lot of you listeners may already be very intuitive and have certain psychic abilities. These may continue to grow and become even more keen. You may grow in your perceptive abilities. And if you're somebody who's like, I don't know if I'm really intuitive or psychic, during these 18 months, your abilities will start to come through. And practices like meditation will help you get in touch with your intuition. And Pisces, as part of this surrender, a really great Piscean practice would be prayer, mantras, along with meditation. And prayer does not have to be religious. I like to think of it as just sort of a verbal way of telling whatever higher power you believe in that you are surrendering to that higher power and just having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Shadow work, metaphysics, deep subconscious, being of service, helping others, just some more Piscean North Node themes to throw in there. Virgo, though, as sort of a virtue, reminds us to do things when we're being of service to others, to do so with boundaries.
Oh, yes.
So we want to take that virtue from the South Node and bring it into Pisces and have boundaries. We're being asked to let go. This kind of goes back to the little bit where I was talking about surrender and being like little micromanagers. Creativity over perfection. And yes, keeping a calendar is still totally fine. That's a virtue of Virgo, to be organized. But what I think the nodes are asking of us here is to let go of our rigidity, over analyzing, and kind of clinging to our own timeline. So we have an element of being organized, but we're letting more of a surrender type theme enter into our daily lives. And I think that is one of the 7 spiritual laws of success, leaving room for spontaneity, leaving some room in your day for flow, for magic.
I have that book, but I haven't read it. We need to do a podcast on that book.
For one of my yoga trainings, we read the 4 agreements and the 7 spiritual laws of success. And I remember that particular spiritual law of success quite well because it was a challenge to me at the time. All the other ones, I thought, I can do that. I can do that. And I think it's called the law of spontaneity. I was like, ooh, that's hard because I used to be the person with the color-coded calendar, and I still keep a calendar.
I was going to say, what do you mean used to? I've seen your calendar, Nicole.
It is color-coded, but it's I write far fewer. I only write kind of the necessities on it, and I leave the rest up to kind of flow,
I
surrender.
think you've got a good bit of spontaneity. We've traveled together. I know you are not like, oh, we need to be here at 2 o'clock. We have to do this at 3 p.m. Like, you're not like that. I think you like to know what's going on, but you're not like line by line.
I think years ago I was a little different. It's a practice, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this type of approach is what the nodes are supporting right now. I have a couple more. Oh, this ties in beautifully. Linear approaches to routine and schedules, releasing of overscheduling,
Mm-hmm.
planning out every moment, and we're starting to release senses of urgency and deadlines. Time doesn't always have to be used wisely to be meaningful. I love that.
Yes.
Some shadow aspects of Pisces that we may see if we haven't been seeing them already: absurdity in the media, deception, feeling overwhelmed. A lot of what's been happening and what we've been seeing in the media is very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction and victimhood. So, some takeaways: stay grounded through your spiritual practices and your boundaries. When things are overwhelming and it feels like everything's moving so quickly and so rapidly, slowing down and getting back to basics is a phenomenal key to staying grounded. Take care of your physical bodies, get back to basics, make sure you're getting quality sleep, and maybe you're sleeping more. That's sort of been my experience the last month, is I am sleeping a lot more. Hydrate, get your nutrition, get your sunlight. Use discernment, rely on your heart and your intuition to help you tune into what feels right for you, what's in alignment with your values, your truth, your beliefs. But we will need to tap into discernment for sure. And then surrender to the creative and divine flows. And I'll just give you a quick example. When we were talking about how 8 years ago, my crazy calendar and micromanaging, I mean, truly, I would try to schedule every moment. And what would end up happening is I would get to a place in my day where I don't feel like doing that anymore. I actually don't have the energy for this, or it doesn't make sense for me to spend my time on what I originally planned and wrote down on my calendar. Something else has come up that needs my attention. And so what I started to practice, I think it was a practice in trusting myself,
Mm-hmm.
and also trusting that my energy would come back later, or my focus would come back later. And I would let myself not do the thing that I had on my calendar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You would let yourself not do it. Give yourself permission not to do a scheduled event, an event that you scheduled for yourself.
Yes, that's the key. I got really nitpicky detailed with my time and what I was going to be doing.
Yeah.
And time again, I was getting burnout, frustrated. It wasn't sustainable.
Be like water. We have to have that flow. We have to be like water. We need all the elements. We need all of them. But the lesson from Pisces, especially for this time of year, moving into February, into March, end of the year, big transitional time, winter to spring, is to don't get caught up in what we think we should be doing and only doing that. Leave space for flow.
I think that's exactly it. And the key word that you said, Christina, was what we think we need to
What
be doing.
that is such a thing. It's such a thing. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. What actually needs to be scheduled on my calendar
Yeah.
versus what does not need to be scheduled on my
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah.
I wish I had like an old screenshot or something to show you because it would be so funny. So funny.
Back we were we were working together when the pandemic first shut down, and I remember visiting you so that we could do some computer together and do some, what were we called, Zoom meetings. You were doing some calls, FaceTime. So I got a glimpse at your calendar, Nicole. I got a little side eye view of it. I've seen the inner workings of your mind before.
It's scary in there.
But my mind likes it. I like organized. But I also can appreciate that that is something that doesn't is not for everybody. It served a purpose. It was a time and a place, and then you just had to kind of let it go and flow a little bit and leave space for spontaneity.
I think that's exactly what the nodes are teaching us is because again, South Node isn't a complete abandonment. South Node is take the virtues and the lessons towards the North Node, which I think in summary is be like water.
Yeah.
So take the virtues of Virgo, being organized to a point, and then balance that with be like water. Because the shadow of Virgo is that bossy micromanager.
What is Virgo? Earth?
I believe so.
It's after Leo, which is fire, and Libra is air, and Scorpio is water. So it's Earth, right? Yeah, so Earth and water, Virgo and Pisces. All the wheel of the astrological signs, they're all in opposition for a reason. As you learn more about the opposition of signs and the north and the south node. Oh, so if we don't have a balance, if like all the air signs were here all the time, we'd never get anything done. Or if all the earth signs were in charge of this whole season, we would never we'd never get out of bed. We would never get stuff done. That is the beauty of the signs and the oppositions and the nodes, is that
Absolutely.
we need both. The lessons of the steadiness of the earth balanced with the fluidity of the water. That's
Mm-hmm.
how we move forward. That's how we find our manifest destiny. That's how we find our dharma. That's how we find our life's purpose. These are tools.
Yes. Pisces shows up in my birth chart in the fourth house. That's where my Jupiter is.
Jupiter.
So Jupiter in Pisces is at home there. It's the domicile. The fourth house is about the home. And I liked this sort of more expanded definition, including what you need to feel safe and at peace. What makes you feel at home. I liked that. So people with this placement, Jupiter and Pisces, have the gift of bridging the metaphysical with the physical. I hope that's true. People with this placement who also choose to get to know themselves through spiritual practices feel the weight of practical life slowly dissipate. I love that. I love that so much.
The illusion begins to fall away.
Yes.
When we talk about our season of yoga, or maybe it'll be in the chakras or somewhere, we talk about the Maya, the illusion of the world around us. And it begins to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And then we begin to see what is true and what is real. And what we begin to answer those questions. What do I actually need to do? What do I actually need in my life?
What do I
How would
actually need to put on
Yeah.
my calendar?
Yeah. Because there's a big difference in what we think we need and what we actually need. So I have no planets in Pisces. The Pisces itself is split between the 11th and the 10th house in my birth chart. Pisces in the 10th house is associated with peace and presence. Individuals with this placement may possess an inner tranquility that helps them in stressful work environments, and they may maintain composure and focus amid chaos, enabling them to handle career challenges with grace and resilience, which immediately made me think of the Rudyard Kipling quote. And I paraphrase this a little bit. If you can keep your head when everyone around you is losing theirs, then it's very probable that you don't understand the situation. That was a common one. Well, I'll say I this was something that I saw as a joke in the military, and it was paraphrased very differently from that beautiful English that Rudyard Kipling used right there. But that's what made me think it is that there is the ability to stay calm and handle, stress, but also where's your understanding of what's going on around you?
Your initial description sounded more complimentary and about composure.
Right? See, these are the two sides. And then that quote is not a compliment. It's like, do you know what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I can't not make a joke about something like that. Okay, and then Pisces in the 11th house, strength center around empathy, intuition, and compassion. The traits for these people who have Pisces in the 11th house excels in group dynamics, community organizations, promoting unity and mutual understanding, the ability to intuitively sense the needs and feelings of the group, which can be really good for people who are wanting to build community. I hope that with my Pisces in the 10th house that I can tap into that as we're moving into this time of uncertainty. And one of my goals for this year is to tap into my community much more than I have been. I want to shop local. I want to be local. I want to do my service and community local. I want to find out places where I can do more stuff in my physical community. And I also, my 12th house, which was ruled by Pisces, my 12th house is in Gemini. Here's Gemini again with me, but mostly Taurus. So if Gemini is in the 12th house, it encourages a deep exploration of the spiritual and unconscious topics, leading to profound understanding of both the self and the universe. So I figure that's something that I need to work on. A really deep understanding of myself and the universe. Just put it on my to-do list. That's what I'm working on. But my 12th house in Taurus is a blend of groundedness and spirituality. And this I do resonate with, that it promotes a patient, steady exploration of the spiritual realm while maintaining a strong sense of self. Like, this may be why I struggle with tapping into my intuition, because I'm very much not there yet. Maybe I'm too Taurusy about it, that I'm too grounded, I'm too earthy, because I have a lot of self-reliance and self-worth that I don't think that I'm going to get lost in a deep meditation, or I'm not going to get so deep into something that I can't come back out of it. I've got my Taurus in the 12th house to keep me steady and grounded.
Speaking of getting lost in it, do you know what's in my 12th house?
Oh,
My Pluto in Scorpio.
that is so perfect. That is, if I would have guessed an outer planet, first of all.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would have went so far as to say a water sign on top of an outer planet, but here we go. Yes.
We talked about that placement of mine in the podcast episode dedicated to Scorpio. And it
Mhm.
is, I think we talked about that I was afraid, and I still can be afraid that the water will overtake me because that is some deep, deep stuff.
Yeah.
Pluto in Scorpio in the 12th house. Phew.
I want to Google that and see what it says about that. Um, more on that, listeners. We learn 5 things and then we discover that we don't know 10 things. That is the nature of this podcast. We're so glad you guys are on this journey with us. We have these aha moments at the exact same time that you might be having them as well. So, more on our 12th houses and us getting lost in our spiritual journeys. And what does the universe have to say about that? I've got our messages from the universe right here. There are 3 cards, but you only pick between A and B. The third card is the realm that the archetypes are going to be in. And it'll make sense when I read it. So, A or B. Card A is the healer, the light worker, the gifted, the old soul. Though some claim the work of the healer as their gift and name it as their dharma, the force of this archetype is within everyone. It is our natural inclination to remember, to return to, and to reclaim that central and eternal life force from which we so easily drift away. In Sanskrit, the word avidya means forgetting, and it is said that this is the source of all suffering and dis-ease. The healer's mission then becomes to move through the comfort of forgetting, through the veils of ignorance and denial, to reveal the radiance that already exists. The healer approaches in this multiple ways, from multiple angles, knowing the cycle of healing is not linear. It is a multi-layered and circuitous process, always leading back to its own origin, much like the Ouroboros, right?
It's the year of the snake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Card B, the vow, the promise, the oath, the contract. When the vow is spoken, the air shifts. Karmic ties are formed and destiny tilts on its axis. Our words and intentions have immense power. There is a reason the great mythic stories of our past often include the recitation of oaths and the mixing of drops of blood as a mark of union. The tricky part is that reciting the vow, no matter how casually, activates the eternal and unseen forces of the world. The ancestors bear witness. The laws of nature respond. These promises cannot be unsaid or forgotten, so breaking them can have lingering complexities and loose ends. This card calls us to acknowledge the vow we are living by, consciously or unconsciously, and either recommit to it or recreate a ritual that signifies its closure. You've been underestimating the power of your promises. All right, final card. This is a location. Gnosis. Innermost knowing and mystic truths. True knowledge is not found in facts and figures in scholarly books on library shelves. Rather, gnosis points to the deep and timeless archetypal wisdom that rises from the felt experience of having touched the unknown with every one of those senses. Those who are drawn to gnosis find themselves in esoteric studies, likely involving mysticism, alchemy, healing, or perhaps science. Knowing is their calling. Not knowing is their job description. No matter how far the alchemist takes their studies, they come to the ultimate conclusion that facts slip towards mystery, and soon the mystery results in facts. This card signifies a knowing that is life-changing. Once you experience it, you are forever changed and become a guardian of gnosis. The eternal mystery is calling you. Study your passion in the deepest way available to you.
I love that one.
Thank you, universe. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. And next week we are doing rhythms
And cycles.
We will talk with you next week. Until then, we love you. Take good care of each other out there. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Radical. The Radical is written and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Listener questions can be emailed to us at theradicalpodnc@gmail.com.
Our Instagram is The Radical Pod.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music.